Welcome to the Callahan Connection. And at this particular show, my guest today is Brian Parrish. Brian Parrish, Home Inspections. Brian, welcome.
Thank you,
Nice
Bill.
to have you here
I
today.
appreciate you letting me come in and give
We
a
want to
little
talk a little bit today about the home inspection process, and not just that, but we want to get into, as we were talking earlier, about some of the issues that homeowners face that they don't even realize they're going to face. So, but let me go back a second and just tell our audience kind of how you get started in this, when you get started, how long you've been doing just the home inspection business.
Yeah, the home inspection I started in '09, and that was basically 9 years after a cardiac event. I had a little time with a hospital and a cardiologist, and
You look good.
I've been an unrestricted construction supervisor for about 25 years. So that cardiologist brought me into his condo in Boston on Atlantic Ave, and I did some work on his kitchen and bathroom. And at the end, he sat me down and says, "Brian, listen," he says, "you do nice work, but you should really find something less physical." And so he was looking out for me, and I didn't know what was involved with the inspection license, but I had a few family and friends that were like, "Yeah, why don't you see?" And somebody I knew in the real estate, maybe look into the inspection thing. And I didn't realize the stack of books and the...
Was 09, when did it change? Because it went from an unlicensed position, where you just said I'm a home inspector, to a licensed
home inspector in Mass. I'm going to say it was like 1984.
Oh, no, much later than that, yeah. And you said, and you started to tell me earlier that to get into it, you have to work under another license.
Yes, if you want to apply for a license, you shadow a licensed inspector, and you follow for about 125 inspections. Basically, if you look it up on the state website, it says 25, but that's just to get your foot in the door.
Yes.
And then when that inspector signs off on you, you can take the national exam and then put your application into the state for. It's about a 2-year process or so. It just depends on the economy and how many inspections people are doing.
Do you find inspectors willing to do that, help people get into the
There is, and one of the groups I'm involved with is called American Society of Home Inspectors.
Yes.
And I joined that organization because the first meeting I went to, there was almost 200 inspectors in the room. I just felt there was a lot of information in that room.
Sharing.
You can share information.
Good things and bad things.
Yeah, exactly. What might I be able to do? Like when I first started out on my own, how do I get business? One inspector did it for a while. He was on the state board. Actually, he's like, just ask the people if you're happy with your service, will they recommend you to their friends and family? And that seemed to work out. And then I got involved with local organizations like here in Bridgewater. I'm part of the Bridgewater Business Association. I have been for years. And local chambers. I do Cranberry Chamber in Middleborough, the Plymouth Chamber, and these organizations help. And of course, I've gone to Metro South. I've gone to their meetings, and I do home buyer seminars for different banks and institutions. I've done a number of presentations with that over the years. So it's interesting. It's interesting work, and it's challenging. There are some crawl spaces. New England, but New England, there's a lot of different homes in New England. A lot of different styles in Plymouth.
You don't have too many crawl spaces, but you do run into them.
Yeah.
Like especially over 55.
The modular homes and the mobile homes. Those are they got something underneath. I do wear knee pads. You see me, I look like a rugged individual, but I want to get underneath there to look. Right, and that's one of the things I do. I do crawl underneath to take a look. I don't do well with spiders, honestly, but that's okay. Right.
Well, I always tell people, you want to know the story about this house, go to the basement, and in that case, you're in the crawl space. But the basement's going to give you a lot of information. And I think you can even tell me that when you do a house, you spend time on the outside, but you spend a lot of time in the basement.
The exterior and the basement are the two biggest sections of homes, and it's really about water management. If you can keep the water going away from the home,
you want it away
you're going to be better off. Water gets into places you don't know about, and then it creates issues. And that's what I tell people. I've been blessed to do a lot of different maintenance inspections with people. People have us come in. If they're in the house 5 years or more, maybe say, hey, let's take a look and see what's going on with the property.
You know what? I'm going to tell you, and you can agree with me or not, but I bet people don't even walk around their house. Like, not once a year do they walk all the way around the house.
Well, that's what, if I have a new family buying a house, maybe the first time home buyer, I'll ask them, you know, when it's raining, come out and walk around and look, see where that water's going. You know, I had a little property yesterday where the corner, the water was building up off to the roof. And sure enough, in that corner of that basement, when I'm banging on the sill with a piece of rebar to see how solid it is, it's all bug damage. It's all
the bugs follow the water.
The bugs follow the water, absolutely. You know, and you know, termites or ants. So those are the big wood-destroying pests, and that's what people should be aware of. You know.
And I've had instances with both at my house and at my office. And it wasn't serious because I got ahead of it.
Right.
You know?
Right. And that's the thing. Most people today are proactive as far as pest management. I mean, mice are not a wood-destroying pest. They're a nuisance, right? And that's the truth of the matter. But you know, they do manage to get into properties, and it's fun.
I tell people, if you go to my shed, it's clean in the fall when I shut that door. You open it in the spring, and it's like, who's been living in here?
Honestly, last spring I found some bug damage in the back of my shed because, like I said, I opened it up, I started cleaning, and I'm like, oh. So I'm making some repairs and trying to do what we can. But when I found that damage, I talked to my pest guy. He's like, now my shed is 150 feet from the house.
Yes.
But he asked me, he says, why don't you just treat the whole house? You don't know how many millions of those bugs are in the ground. So if they're out here in the shed, there's a chance they could find another spot for you. So I did listen to him.
Well, the pest guy, he says if they're in the shed or they're in the yard, they're gonna head to the house sooner or later.
Yeah, exactly. So I tell people. But get back, like I said, the structure, any basement, I mean, New England has a lot of different basements. We have, you know, the old field stone.
Field stones,
you know, from the 1600s in Plymouth. There's some homes still from the 1600s. And I've been blessed to do a few inspections over there. So it's really quite interesting. But, you know, and in the 17 and 1800s, there's still field stones. And then they started putting red brick above the grade and keep things flowing. And then, of course,
wasn't that a sign of somebody that had some money if they used
the red brick?
Brick, they came up off the stone with red brick.
Exactly. And there's a lot of those homes. And New England is unique like this, you know. Of course, we have the Campanelli brothers that started the slab home industry. They were way ahead of their time.
Way ahead.
They started the home building like Henry Ford did with the car building. And they'd come up with trusses in the roofs and
5 or 6 foundations at a time.
Yep, and they had, you know,
right down the street.
They put radiant floor heating in those foundations back in the 50s and 60s. Of course, today they're all being converted to a warm air furnace or something.
Water, warm air.
And they change. But it's good to look through different structures and see what's going on. But you know, I'm happy I can go out and try to teach people about, you know, what's home maintenance. You know, what do you do?
Let's talk about that. And I have here a note: scope of work. So kind of tell the audience, when you get to the house, what is your, you know, walk us through the steps.
So the routine for me, I'll take about 30 minutes outside. I'll walk around outside. I do a lap or maybe 2 by myself, and then when a client comes, I'll walk with them and start talking. Right? So I want to see.
Okay, that's an important point. Because you want them with you.
Absolutely.
And you want them to ask questions, and you want to educate them.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Right.
Go ahead. So
it's easier for them instead of just sending a report, because people can get overwhelmed looking at these reports. Not just the photos, but the verbiage that's in there. Keep the water moving. So I'll look at everything. I walk on a lot of roofs still.
You do?
It just depends on the home. You know, I don't get on a 12 pitch or a 10 pitch. I do have. God. I have some training.
Remember what the doctor told you.
Yeah, exactly. I have some training, and I understand. I've done a lot of classes with Certainteed over in Norwood. They brought a group of inspectors in there and taught us about the shingle manufacturing process and what we should be looking for on roofs. So it's good. You know, and then I look at gutters. Like I said, water management. Some homes have great big overhangs on the soffit, and the architect doesn't want any gutters. But if you have a big enough overhang, it's going to splash into the yard.
Correct.
Right? And then, you know, we'll see what the siding looks like, the windows. It's all water infiltration. Today, there's new cement board siding. The flashing requirements on that are pretty rigid. If it's not flashed properly, then water can sneak in behind that.
You're supposed to, in the joints, in between the joints, you're supposed to seal them.
There's flashing behind it, and different manufacturers want you to seal it with silicone, and there's a lot of different products out there today. That's why we were talking earlier about the education. I'm happy to do continuing education, whether it's construction supervisor or the inspection, but when I'm done walking around the exterior, I go down into the basement.
You're taking notes as you're
I'm taking notes. I got an iPad.
Oh, you have?
Exactly. I walk around.
Right in.
I got an iPad. I'm taking a lot of pictures. I'll take some notes. So for me personally, I do part of the inspection report on the site.
Yeah, I like that because you guys have that.
Right. I can type it right in, and then I'll go back to my office and finish things up. Right? I always tell people within 24 hours you'll see a full report. I like to finish up in the evening. I get up in the morning with a fresh mind and look and see, can I make it proof. I'm an old printer, so proofreading's important, right? But you know, when I get into the basement, what do I look? I focus on structure first. Yeah. Like we talked about, foundation is a big deal. Cracks in the foundation, people should know. Horizontal cracks, those are concerning.
Really?
Yeah, because there's something pushing on the house.
Pressure.
A horizontal crack in the foundation is more of a concern. If like my house has a cinder block foundation.
Yes.
A lot of times people will see the steps.
Yeah.
You see the steps on the cracks, and that's not as concerning. But anytime you can do some repair to seal them up and see what goes on. And
I sold a house in Norton last fall. Had a concrete block foundation.
Yep.
Built in 1948. A little cape.
Yep.
Okay, and they put an addition on it, but the main foundation was block. Yep. It had the cracks.
Yep.
And that house has been there since 1948.
Right.
It's 2024.
Yep.
Last year, and we had and this kid that was going to buy it, and I was trying to help him. He brought in a foundation guy.
Yep.
And the foundation guy said, "Well, it's going to be anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000." And I just shook my head. I said, "You got the wrong guy." Yeah. And he quit on the deal.
Yeah.
He quit on the deal.
Yeah. He got scared.
He got scared. And his mother was like on his left ear, you know. Yeah,
so it's hard, and as a licensed inspector in Massachusetts, I can't really refer people, but I can tell them, you know, who's the two biggest names in this area are CrackX and A1 Foundation. A1
but on a block foundation, you're going to expect cracks.
You're gonna see those step cracks. That's why I said to you, the step cracking is not as concerning. Of course, it's nice if you can repair them.
Yeah.
Now, the block foundation, people don't realize when they're building that, they're supposed to be filling them in.
Inside the block.
Yeah, there should be stone and mortar and cement. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
A lot of them are not.
Not always?
No, and how I know is I bring a piece of rebar. So I use that rebar as a sounding tool.
Oh, you do?
When I first walk in the basement, I'm checking the sill.
Oh, yeah,
and this is how I find some bug damage sometimes.
Yeah.
But the blocks, you can hear it when they're hollow.
Yeah.
The other thing, I'll bang on the concrete floor.
Good point.
Looking for any voids. Sometimes I get into I've done some commercial jobs.
Yeah.
And I'll bring a big chain. I'll drag a chain, and everybody's going to be quiet. Let's hear if you can really hear a difference when there's a hollow void.
An echo.
Yeah, because some of the commercial, there might be a buried tank.
Right.
Right. So that's
Back
I use
in the day, buried stumps.
Well, that's the thing. Yep, a house in Lakeville I did last year. They had a big sinkhole in the yard. They buried all the stumps.
Buried stumps, correct.
The girl that bought it was thrilled that I said something about the hole in the yard.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, well, I wanted to let you know that
there's something there.
It's going down. There's a big hole there.
Right.
I couldn't see the bottom of it with my flashlight.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what it is. So when I get into the basement, I'm happy to go through the structure first.
Yep.
And talk about what I'm seeing. I will make notes and try to give people guidance. It's just education.
Well, it's education. You're not trying to strike fear into them.
No, it's just information.
Yeah.
What my job is to gather information.
Right.
So you as a client can make a decision. If I'm doing an inspection for you, you already own the house, you want to know, what do I really need to do to maintain it? Is this something I can just let slide? Or like when I start looking at the mechanicals, I will open the electrical panel to look inside. I'm not a licensed electrician, but my license allows me to look inside there. A lot of times we see water has been coming through that electrical panel.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's where something should be done immediately.
Okay, I got one for you.
Yep.
In my experience 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm on the listing side, so I'm not there for the inspection.
Yep.
And we're recommended we don't be there. You know, it's up to the buyer and the buyer agent. And the home inspector said there was water in the box.
Yep.
And I'm like, come on, give me a break. It's a brand new box. You look at it, it's brand new. Well, I went over and I saw a little bit of rust or something like that. I said, okay, well, I'll get the electrician. And when the electrician got there, so the wire comes off the pole, downhill, into the house, and it has that little loop.
Yep.
But it was so much water dripping along that line, it went through the loop, got up over the top, came down the inside cable, the pipe,
Panel, yeah.
came in and just kept dripping and dripping all over the panel to the bottom of that box.
Yep.
It was all rusted.
Yep.
The thing had to be replaced.
Yep.
And the electrician said, "Geez, it's a good thing you found this."
Well, that's the thing. People don't know.
We had to replace the board and the cable from the board from the
outside.
street
Yeah.
to change the pitch of it.
Yep. Yep. And that's why, like I said, my license is there to gather information. I would always tell people, get a licensed electrician to look at it, see what's going on, because I've seen a lot of times where you can see the rust, you can see the drip lines on the main feed coming in.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
If the main breaker is rusted, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it won't
Same
shut
with
off.
breakers below it.
Yeah.
If the breakers don't trip, then there could be a fire.
Fire.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is so that's for me. That's like an immediate concern.
Yeah. Well, I learned something there. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I learned not to take that so lightly because
Yeah.
the electrician was, he said, we got to get on this.
Yeah. Let's change it out. And that's the thing. People do make changes.
So we're going to tell the audience. So you're there to, highlight things and educate the buyers. The electrical panel, check it once in a while. The boiler, here's some things you should think about with this boiler. And a lot of people don't even understand the maintenance of a oil-fired boiler, what they should be doing.
Exactly. So oil, just so you know, New England is still 70% oil in New England.
Right.
So oil is annual maintenance. Why? Because it burns dirtier than natural gas. Natural gas should be every 2 years minimum, but most people don't do anything with the natural gas until something stops.
Yeah.
And then they'll call for service. But boilers, so there's two main type of heating. I'll get into two of them that have been around for a long time. Is a boiler is going to push hot water.
Correct.
Either into a radiator, and some of the radiators are steam, or a warm air furnace. It just blows warm air at you.
Correct.
So those are the two differences. Boilers are heavy duty.
And you got a hot water baseboard.
Yes, that pushes. Again, the forced hot water by boiler it's a hydronic system, but it's a very good way to heat your home, because when the boiler stops, the heat is still in those baseboard heaters or the radiators for a long time before the boiler has to kick on again and starts producing heat.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. A warm air furnace, unfortunately, when that shuts off, the heat stops.
Yeah, right.
So it takes a little. But the new houses today, they're insulated so well, they really do hold on to that heat for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of new houses. I mean, and you know this because of your construction background, the HERS rating has changed quite a bit.
It really has. Yeah.
I'm building a new house today, and you got to get that rating. You got to get that letter. It was over $2,000 just to get the HERS rating letter.
To get them in to do that test.
Correct.
Yep, they do a blower door test.
Well, this is a new house going up, so.
But still, they need to pay attention to it. Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, some of the houses they're so tight now they need mechanical ventilation.
They're putting ventilation in.
You have to have a fan that's going to keep running, bringing some fresh air.
Right. It needs fresh air inside the house.
Right. I mean, years ago, the old houses they would breathe naturally.
Yeah.
Right? And that's no longer happening because of energy conservation, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Windows were like it was like a source of cold air.
Right.
But
the mechanicals are an important part of people's home.
Well, I want you to comment on this. So I like to have. I had a guy coming in every May, June, July. He would come in. He'd call me, and he'd service the boiler in the summertime.
Yep.
Because you don't want to wait till the winter.
No.
Those guys get busy in the winter.
Well, as I say, like right now, April's a good time to buy your fuel.
Right. Fill it up.
Fill up your oil and whatever else you might use. Like a lot of people either use, wood for wood stoves or wood pellet stoves. I've had a wood pellet stove for years, but again, you have to maintain it.
Yeah.
And you have to have the fuel.
Yeah. Well, he would come in, he would adjust that he changed the nozzle, I think.
Yep.
Right, and then he would adjust that to make sure it was firing right, and then the filter on the oil tank, he changed that filter.
Yep.
Get that all cleaned out.
And that's important. People don't realize there is a filter on the oil tank.
Yeah.
And oil tanks, really, that's another good subject. Is 25 years or older,
Yeah.
your insurance companies are going to be questioning how old the tank is. Like I said, I've been burning wood pellets for years, so I went almost 3 years without buying oil. But I buy a lot of pellets. So my oil company calls and says, hey, we need to come in and inspect your tank. I'm like, okay, come on in. Right?
Yeah.
Because they want to make sure that your tank is sound.
Because the oil's sitting in there.
Well, yeah, they don't want you dumping oil into the ground when they're pumping the oil in. So the oil companies have changed. The laws have changed in Massachusetts. They want people to know an oil company will come in and do an ultrasound test on your tank just to make sure everything's good, so there's no issues when they start
Yeah, you're supposed to
dumping the
get
oil.
down and look underneath.
They look underneath,
look
but
for
the
rust
ultrasound they'll test
Yeah.
the soundness of the metal.
Correct.
Right, the 12 gauge steel that they have in there. So there's a few things going on that they should be checking.
Yeah.
The other thing with the oil or the heating systems, every 10, 15 years, somebody should be looking. There's a heat exchanger, right? So if a heat exchanger cracks,
Correct.
the CO can come into a house. So those are things that are important to have them checked out.
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there was a tragedy up in New Hampshire back in the wintertime, and I don't think they had the smoke detectors.
Three family members? Yeah, I did hear
Yeah.
about that. Every year, sadly, we seem to hear at least.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, and talk about the dry events now.
So
change in that
laundry,
law.
again, the codes are changing. I'm not here to enforce building codes, but I want to teach people about why.
No, this is education.
Well,
This
yeah,
is
exactly.
education.
What the dryer codes have changed because the lint would get caught up in the spirals, and even the screws that would go through. So if they're not clean, and if they're not able to flow that lint out, they build up. Lint is very combustible.
Dangerous.
A lot of people have had home fires because of the dry events.
Right.
So they've come in and changed those codes. It's the same with the little bathroom fans we have.
Correct.
The small motor, they overheat. If you don't keep them clean.
Yeah. And sometimes they're vented into the attic, which causes problems, mold in
Right,
the attic.
exactly.
Yeah.
They're supposed to go outside.
Yeah. That's more common than you think.
That's one reason I do myself. When the last thing I crawl in at people's property is their attic.
Yeah.
I said I get in the basement and I work my way up.
Yeah.
So by the time I get into the attic, and yesterday was no exception, the fan is just blowing the moisture from the bathroom into the attic.
Let me tell you a story about a bad dry event. We bought a new dryer, and the technology of the dryer, it says your vent is 90% blocked. Okay? So we're trying to check it. You know, you can check the inside pipe, and it's on the second floor, and your pipe goes off into a wall.
Yeah.
And so my wife went upstairs into the attic. She's, small, I can get up there. And the thing's sitting on the floor up there. So it's venting from the dryer into the attic.
Yep.
And it's still saying it's blocked. So I said, geez, that's not good.
Right.
And we finally found a guy to come out, and he could check it from up in the attic. He could check down into the pipe. But we had the wrong kind of pipe too.
Right. Yeah.
So we were.
So now it's a smooth wall pipe, whether
Correct.
it's a Galvy pipe or a PVC, as long as it's a smooth wall.
Yeah,
and
we got it all correct.
the screws have to be minimum. So there's a whole business now. People just
That's all
cleaning
exactly.
the dry events. That's
what
they
it
do.
was. These guys were dryer guys.
Yep, and then they make it so it's easy for people to do maintenance. Of course, you just got to pay them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But maintenance on homes are important, and that's why I started years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, advertising as maintenance inspections.
Yeah.
So he's got a scan code he's going to leave for me.
Good.
The maintenance inspections is just think about your car, right? We maintain our cars because we want to go when we hit the button and we start it. Same with the home.
That report that you put out
Yep.
is a valuable report.
Yep.
That should not be thrown in a drawer.
No.
That should be something like a living document. Geez, what happened? I think I might see something here. Well, let's look at the report. Did Brian bring that up in the report?
So the reports today are digital, but you can print them.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's because of the photos, they've grown in length. What used to be
Yeah,
15, 20 pages is 60 pages now, right? Because the photos eat up a lot of pages.
Yeah.
So people do. They get
Yeah.
scared when they say 60 pages.
But the photo is good because it brings proof to the report.
It can
You have a
Yep.
verbal thing, then you see a picture.
Right.
Oh, I see what he's talking about.
I can draw a circle and put an arrow
Right.
right into that corner where, like I said yesterday in the attic, not only the dryer fan, the fan in the bathroom was blown into the attic, one of the plumbing vent pipes was disconnected.
It didn't go out. Didn't go out through the.
No, it didn't go through the roof. So what that means is methane gas would
Gas.
get into the attic, and it will affect the plumbing because you want the airflow to go up and the water will go down. So,
Right. Yeah.
And of course the people, they were shocked I got in the attic. First of all, a little tiny scuttle hole, but
You went up through the scuttle.
I know how to put my arms up. Right? If I can put my arms up and get my shoulders through, then
Aren't you afraid you're
pull
never going to get out of there? You won't get down.
Well, interesting point. My son's a firefighter.
Yeah.
He works with me doing the inspections.
What
He's
town is he in?
Onset. He's in Onset.
Okay,
So
good.
Last thing I want to do is have to call him in the fire department and say, come get me, I'm stuck. But on that point, there's one time we walked around the property and we could smell the natural gas. Right?
Yeah.
Before we went in, we were ready to open the door, and then I'm like, hold on. I let my senses do some things for me, and then I says, it's the only time, like, you got to call the fire department.
Yeah.
Let them come down and clear the house and see. And they were like,
check.
good thing you didn't go in and start flipping switches.
Yeah.
It would have been news at 11, and I don't really want to be on the news.
Yeah.
I don't play the lottery, so I don't have any chance of hitting that.
Hey, there's one thing I want to bring up here because we're getting near the end here, and we talk about people waiving home inspections, which I understand why they do it because of the market forces. Yep. They want to get in without an inspection, although it can be, you're taking a risk by doing that. Yep. And the other thing that I'm not in favor of is when it says an informational inspection. You ever run into that?
Yeah, both of those things are very good. I'll start with the informational inspection.
Yeah.
For me, inspections are all about information.
Yeah, but they use it as a kind of a trigger in a purchase and sale.
Yeah, they want a way out or to make their offer look more acceptable, more attractive. And that brings me to the waiving the inspection.
Correct.
So in Massachusetts, they've just passed a law last year that the verbiage on the offer, you can no longer say on your offer, we're going to waive the inspection.
Really?
Right? So those verbs can't be in there. When your offer is accepted, that's when you can tell your home seller, okay, these people aren't going to do an inspection. That way the home seller doesn't have leverage over the people buying the house. Say I know I have a buried...
Oh, I see, because they can tell the next guy.
They can tell the next guy.
First guy's waving it, you wave it.
Yeah.
But there's still, I see them all the
Oh,
time.
I understand. It's like any law. Things takes time. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like yourself have a clear conscience, and you are very good to your clients.
I got to be able to get to sleep at night.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what makes the world go round.
Well,
basically.
thank you for being here today. I hope we've been on a lot of information here.
Good.
Hope our crowd.
Yep. And I'll
Brian Parrish, Home Inspection.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
I'll
for
leave my
being
contact info.
Good.
I know they're going to put a thing. I have some.
508-631-5874.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Good to see you. Yep.